My name is Doug Downs. My guest this week, Fred Cook, who's the director for the USC Annenberg Center for Public Relations. Fred, it's good to see you in person. You and I have been together virtually, but not in person.
That's right. Hi, Doug. How are you doing? We're here in Toronto at the IABC conference.
Right. Hence all the noise that you might hear in the background.
Excited participants.
Okay, and they are partly excited because your new report, which you're calling a quiet shift, it's focusing this year on polarization, world polarization's impact on public relations.
Right.
What are your key takeaways about that?
Well, one is that it's probably going to be here for a while. Polarization is not going anywhere anytime soon. The second thing is that polarization is bad for society, it's bad for mental health, it's bad for business, but it happens to be very good for the PR profession.
Because each camp needs somebody to develop their voice and develop their strategy for communications. Is that why?
Because communications polarization makes it very complex, and the potential for retribution and damage by saying or doing something right now has never been higher. So public relations counsel, thoughtful counsel, has become very valuable. So what's bad for the country and bad for individuals, it happens to be good for the PR industry.
If it enrages, it engages, I suppose.
Yes.
When you say polarization, it's not like there's just a North and a South Pole, really. There are a million different camps, a million different communities. Some are geographically based, but some of them aren't even geographically based. It's like we're checkerboarded now.
Well, it's true. And if you look at the globe, there are a lot of places that are polarized. Probably the U.S. is one that's near the top in terms of our polarization. And it's a more bilateral kind of thing. It's like the left and the right. And what's happened over the years is they've sort of hardened in their positions. So there's really no conversation anymore between the two. It's just a vilification of either side. And that makes it difficult. And people, politicians and media, are using polarization as a marketing strategy because they realize that if they can be on the extremes, they can get votes, they can raise money, they can get more viewers by focusing on a core target audience that agrees with them.
There was someone in one of the sessions that I was speaking with, and of course the voice is about how do we unite, how do we discover those of like identity to us so that we can come closer together. And we together kind of observe that the way we tend to unite is by observing those we can criticize, those we can attack and say, I'm like you because I'm not like them.
Yes.
And we're so focused on the whom we're not like or whom we don't deem to fit in our tribe, so to speak.
We identify by echo chambers.
Yeah.
And we live inside those echo chambers, and the media feeds us information that we want to reinforce our existing views, and that creates even more polarization. And there's no looking outside of that echo chamber, looking over the wall to see what the other people think. Those conversations aren't happening anymore.
How do you feel about that this is ironically a positive, I guess, from an opportunity standpoint for public relations pros? I appreciate that it's good for comms because I support comms, but I don't appreciate the context in which it's happening.
Well, I think PR has always found its importance in times of crisis. Communication becomes critically important. What I worry about is over time, if we remain in a polarized environment for the next 5 years and people aren't speaking out about anything,
they won't.
Whether PR is going to become less important over time. Because I think to some degree CEOs now can't talk about some of these controversial issues, and I think some of them are happy about it. And they're, so say, I don't have to deal with this stuff anymore, and maybe I don't need as many people to help me communicate if I don't need to communicate as much. That's my concern longer term. Yeah. Right now we're more important, but over time, if communications is less of a priority, then we may become less of a priority too.
One of the first comments I heard at the conference was a senior leader who says she's at the C-suite, but the problem is her CEO also has an advisor known as ChatGPT. Yeah. And if their advisor, ChatGPT, says go left, and she's saying we really ought to be leaning to the right here, the CEO goes with ChatGPT, and it's sycophantic.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it reinforces what you already believe.
Yeah. How big a problem is that going to? Is that just causing more divide? The sycophancy of AI is capable of dividing us even further.
Well, somebody asked a question in my session just now about whether AI was contributing to polarization. And I honestly don't know the answer. It's a very good question. But if it is contributing to what people already think and reinforcing their views sycophantically, if that's a word, then that's a problem. But I don't know that AI is creating a bias. If it's unbiased and giving information that's not leaning towards one side or another, that would be a good thing. But I'm not sure what impact it's having on this issue.
Okay, where can we go to seek the unbiased? Because I'm sorry, I'm convinced it's not the mainstream media.
No,
not a
no,
single
not
one.
anymore. They've all taken sides.
Right, right. I love podcasting, but the truth is, I trust the podcasters I trust,
Yeah.
and maybe they're all triangles, and I need to hear about more circles, kind of thing.
And people in this polarized environment, they trust way fewer media. And the ones that they do trust are the traditional trade media and the business press are the ones that they believe in.
How do you encourage people? One of the most positive things I've heard really smart people say is they spend at least a half hour a day reading things that they disagree with.
Yeah,
How do you like that?
that's a good idea.
How do we encourage more people to do that? Why would I raise my agitation meter when I get plenty of agitation at work? I don't need to go seek it in my reading time.
Well, unfortunately, most people don't spend a half an hour a day reading anything. But so I think they should start by immersing themselves in these stories to form their own opinion, as opposed to just taking the opinion of somebody that they already believe in. And I think that's a little more self-reflection would be good, whether it's your own news that you agree with or whether it's someone else's. Whether or not, because the truth actually doesn't exist anymore. It's like everybody has their own truth, and people believe it no matter what. So you can't base everything on what you think is true or what's not true. You've got to be open to other points of view.
How important is it for educational institutions, the ones that are teaching communication strategy and public relations, to acknowledge that while this is a growth opportunity for PR to further polarize the world, that there's still an ethical standard under which we all need to operate, that we all need to agree upon and then operate?
Yes, and that's part of what we teach. We have ethics courses about public relations. And I think that's part of the function of a school is to teach people how to use their skills properly and in accordance with ethical rules and guidelines. But what also is happening is the polarization is changing the role of public relations. Because we're not talking about D&I, we're not talking about sustainability, we're not talking about purpose. All those things have been taken off the menu. And right now, I think what's going to happen is PR people are going to have to be trained more in crisis management, more in government relations, and also in financial, because we're going to have to be much more aligned with the business in terms of the kind of information we're releasing and talking about than it is telling stories about the good things the companies are doing. So it changes the criteria for what a PR person needs to be good at. And technology is a big part of that. AI is such a force in our industry that we have to train people on how to use the technology in the right way too. So it's finance, technology, public affairs, government relations, and crisis management become the core skills that you need to teach young PR people.
I know you feel this in the U.S. I think we feel this in Canada too, that half the time there's a government that's elected that it feels like it represents me. And the other half of the time it feels like there's a government that's elected that doesn't represent me even in the slightest, which in and of itself is like a polarized kind of feeling. Ultimately, I should feel Canadian, and you should feel American, right? Unified under our common values. It's just so difficult these days because communicators are leading the way or contributing to a divisiveness that's permeating.
It's because it's a marketing strategy. People use polarization to get votes. And they rile people up on issues that are polarizing, like immigration. And they use those when they need to raise money, when they need to get votes, or when they're trying to get viewers, because they know that that's a hot button for people. So that's why it's increasing. It's not going away anytime soon, because people realize that's a great way to build their brand, by polarizing people and achieving that through building a base of core people who believe exactly what you believe.
Do you take any solace in that when I talk to people one-to-one, there's so much we have in common. It's astounding. We focus on the things that make us different. And this kind of communication is appealing to the amygdala, the very primitive part of the brain to try to stir emotions. Do you take solace in that? Ultimately, when we think it through, we are deeper thinking individuals, and we're not stupid.
No, and I think people tend to identify the people with opposite beliefs as stupid. And I think that's a mistake, because they're not stupid. They just happen to think something different than you, and that doesn't make them stupid. And when you start with that stupidity as the baseline, it's hard to have a conversation with somebody that you think is just dead wrong and stupid. And that's what's happened. We've vilified the opposition, and there's no way to find any kind of middle ground.
I know PRSA was launching a campaign a couple of years ago to do more listening,
Yeah.
get more feedback. I think that's actually the answer.
It is the answer, but it's just not happening. And it happened during Donald Trump's first administration. There were a lot of efforts by different organizations to have people come together and have conversations with differing points of view. But that has stopped. Nobody's even trying to do that anymore because they realize that it's so hardcore, it's so permanent, fixed on either side that the conversations have become almost impossible.
I really appreciate your time. It's sad news that sad, bittersweet news because the job opportunities might see an increase here, but it's under a tough climate.
Well, it makes our job more important, makes it more thoughtful, but we've got to adapt with this scenario because we can't, the pendulum has swung one way for a long time and now it's swinging back the other way, and who knows where it's going to end up. We'll have to wait and see, but I think PR people need to adapt to whatever happens in order to provide the kind of counsel that their clients and their bosses are looking for.
Perfect. Thanks again, Fred.
You're welcome. Thanks. Good to see you.